Shalom, 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 shalom. First, I want to give the praises and the glory to Yahweh, Wahasham, Yahushua, Wahasham, Wakam Kadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who have been leading this word in truth, in spirit, and sincerity. And salutations to my fellow Hebrew Israelite brothers out there that are plowing the fields, teaching the words in the name of Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahushai. Shalom, shalom, shalom. So today's edification, U.S. governments discuss UFOs. U.S. government discuss UFOs, aka Chariots of the Lord, also known as the Chariots of the Lord. So I want you to listen to this congressional meeting that they had the other day in Congress. This was a private U.S. government Congress meeting with the Department of Defense and top officials within the department, and they were discussing the encounters of UFOs and UAPs, which they call unidentified aerial phenomenons, or UFOs, unidentified flying objects. They had a meeting 2 weeks ago. It was a private meeting, but because it was members of Congress was there, they had to make it public after they had this meeting. And in it, they was discussing their encounters, the US government's encounter with UFOs and UAPs. The UFO is an unidentified flying object. A UAP is an unidentified aerial phenomenon. Those are the two acronyms that they use. The UAP comes from the UK. The UFO term comes from the US. So I want you to listen to this meeting that they had, and then we're going to do what we do best. We're going to pull out the scriptures. Yeah.
It's a privilege to be here with you today to address your questions regarding unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UAP. What are UAP? Put simply, UAP are airborne objects that, when encountered, cannot be immediately identified. However, it is the department's contention that by combining appropriate...
He says it cannot be immediately identified, but we know what they are. They are the chariots of the Lord. They are the Lord's chariots, and that's what the angels have been coming to and fro in on the earth, bringing reports and doing the works of Yahweh, the Father, and Yahushai, the Son. So we know exactly what they are, but they're still grappling and trying to identify what they are. So listen to what he says.
Structured, collected data with rigorous scientific analysis, any object that we encounter can likely be isolated, characterized, identified, and if necessary, mitigated. With regard to the importance of transparency, the department is fully committed to the principle of openness and accountability to the American people. However, we are also mindful of our obligation to protect sensitive sources and methods. Our goal is to strike that delicate balance, one that enables us to maintain the public's trust while preserving those capabilities that are vital to the support of our service personnel. In closing, the department is committed to this effort and welcomes the challenge. We thank you for your committed support and look forward to your questions.
Let me share with you the first video that we have here today, which shows an observation in real time. There it was. That's, in many cases, that's all that a report may include. And in many other cases, we have far less than this. As we detailed in both the unclassified and classified versions of the preliminary assessment released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence last June, this often limited amount of high-quality data and reporting hampers our ability to draw firm conclusions about the nature or intent of UAP. As detailed in the ODNI report, if and when individual UAP incidents are resolved, they likely fall into one of 5 potential explanatory categories: airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, U.S. government or U.S. industry developmental programs, foreign adversary systems, or a other bin that allows for a holding bin of difficult cases and for the possibility of surprise and potential scientific discovery.
And that's what it is. It is the other. It's the chariots of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. It's the Lord's chariots. This is what the angels are coming back and to and forth for from the heavens of heavens to the earth, doing reconnaissance missions, taking out tasks, doing all of the Lord's work in preparation for the coming of the Son of Man, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. And that's what those UAPs are. Let's listen on.
Let me show you a couple of another video and image taken years apart in different areas. In this video, U.S. Navy personnel recorded what appears to be triangles, some flashing, recorded several years ago, off the coast of the United States. This was recorded while the U.S. Navy ship observed a number of small unmanned aerial systems in the area.
Wow.
And importantly, the video was taken through night vision goggles with a single lens reflex camera. These remained unresolved for several years.
Of those 144, 18 of them reportedly appear to exhibit.
You know what he said? Of those 144, 18 of them. What's the number? The Lord said it's going to be what? 144, right? He says, listen to what he says again, right? The scripture says, right? In Revelation 7, right? And he said it. The Lord says, Revelation 7, verse 4. And I heard the number of them which were sealed. And they were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. So, listen to what he says again.
Of those 144, 18 of them
There you go.
reportedly appear to exhibit unusual flight characteristics, appear to demonstrate advanced technology, and some of them appeared to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. That's pretty intriguing. And if you're able to answer this in this setting, are we aware of any foreign adversary capable of moving objects without any discernible means of propulsion?
I think I would, without discernible means of propulsion, I would say that we're not aware of any adversary that can move an object without discernible means of propulsion.
That means without no type of like engine or what they know as a modern day engine that can propel something back and forth, where they can see where the power's coming from. They have no idea how these chariots are moving. All praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. They have no idea. Let's hear what he's got to say.
Question then becomes, in many of these cases where we don't have a discernible mean of propulsion in the data that we have, in some cases there is likely sensor artifacts that may be hiding some of that. There's certainly some degree of something that looks like signature management that we have seen from some of these UAP, but I would caution. I would simply say that there are a number of events in which we do not have an explanation, and there are a small handful in which there are flight characteristics or
But no explanation. The chariots of the Lord. Propulsion is like driving or propelling of a machine, like driving or propelling like a driving or propelling force. But you can see what's propelling a car, a truck, a boat, a plane to move in a certain direction. They can't see any means of propulsion. Anything, any means of propulsion can they see on these devices, right? To push forward or to drive an object forward. So they can't see any means what's making the objects, which are the UFOs or chariots, drive forward, move forward, go sideways. A propulsion system is like a machine that produces thrust to push an object forward, just like I said. Airplanes, thrust is usually generated through the application of what they call like Newton's third law of action and reaction. A gas of working fluid, is accelerated by the engine, and the reaction Sorry, and the gas or working fluid is accelerated by the engine, and the reaction to this acceleration produces a force of the engine, basically. So they can't see any means of how these objects are propelling themselves to go up, down, sideways, so forth, and this and that. He has no idea. He's not going to have any idea because, like I said, these are the chariots of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. These are the chariots of the Lord. So like a general derivation of the thrust equation shows that the amount of thrust generated depends on the mass flow through the engine and the exit velocity of the gas. So different propulsion systems generate thrust in slightly different ways. So you've got the propeller, you've got the turbine or jet engine, you've got the ramjet, and then you've got the rocket. These are different types of propelling systems, right? So if you think of Newton's first law of motion, we realize that an airplane's propulsion system must serve two purposes. First, the thrust from the propulsion system must balance the drag of the airplane when the airplane is cruising. And the second is the thrust from the propulsion system must exceed the drag of the airplane for the airplane to accelerate. In fact, the greater the difference between the thrust and the drag, which is called the excess thrust, the faster the airplane will accelerate. So they don't see that. They don't know how these objects are moving. They have no idea how they are moving these objects. This is why I say that. They have no idea how they're moving.
Signature management that we can't explain with the data that we have. We'll continue. Those are obviously the ones that are of most interest to us. Earlier, when we asked about how you avoid technological surprise, the biggest way you avoid technological surprise is by collecting this type of data and by, importantly, calibrating the assumptions that you go into with how you do that analysis. I'll tell you, within the UAP task force, we have one basic assumption, and that is that generally speaking, our sensors operate as designed. And we make that assumption because many times these are multi-sensor collections. We make no assumptions about the origin of this or that there may or may not be some sort of technology that we don't understand. That's, I think, the key to avoiding technological surprises by calibrating those assumptions.
It's also been reported that there have been UAP observed and interacting with and flying over sensitive military facilities, particularly, and not just ranges, but some facilities housing our strategic nuclear forces. One such incident allegedly occurred at Malmstrom Air Force Base, in which 10 of our nuclear ICBMs were rendered inoperable. At the same time, a glowing red orb was observed overhead. I'm not commenting on the accuracy of this. I'm simply asking you whether you're aware of it and whether you have any comment on the accuracy of that report.
Let me pass that to
Did you hear that? All praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. So they've got legitimate reportings of a chariot that was hovering over, and they said that they witnessed a red glowing light from the chariot hovering over a military nuclear base where they have intercontinental ballistic missiles. And they said the report said that the chariot that was hovering over it, which they call UFOs or UAPs, it nullified, it disabled every single 10 or 12 nuclear missiles that was based at that nuclear site. Completely nullified them, disabled them, so they couldn't use them, couldn't turn them on, shut them off completely, took full control of them. So that's just what he's asking. This is what's happened, right? This is what he said, right? Just go back again.
With and flying over sensitive military facilities, particularly, and not just ranges, but some facilities housing our strategic nuclear forces. One such incident allegedly occurred at Malmstrom Air Force Base, in which 10 of our nuclear ICBMs were rendered inoperable. At the same time, a glowing red orb was observed overhead.
Then ICBMs were made inoperable. Because like I said, when the Lord's ready to operate those ICBM, when he's ready to put the spirit on this man to use them, he's just making sure that the ones that the chariots, the ones that they need to lock off, they can lock off when this war comes. They want to be activated, to be fired, will be fired. The spirit of the Lord is going to be in those missiles, boy, in the day of judgment.
I'm not commenting on the accuracy of this. I'm simply asking you whether you're aware of it and whether you have any comment on the accuracy of that report.
Let me pass that to Mr. Bray. You've been looking at UAPs over the last 3 years.
That data is not within the holdings of the UAP task force.
Okay, but are you aware of the report, or that the data exists somewhere?
I have heard stories. I have not seen the official data on that.
So you've just seen informal stories, no official assessment that you've done or exists within DoD that you're aware of regarding the Malmstrom incident?
All I can speak to is, what's within my cognizance, the UAP task force, and we have not looked at that incident.
Well, I would say, it's a pretty high-profile incident. I don't claim to be an expert on this, but that's out there in the ether. You're the guys investigating it. I mean, who else is doing it?
If something was officially brought to our attention, we would look at it. There are many things that are out there in the ether that aren't officially brought to our attention.
If it was brought to their attention, like they don't know, this is what makes me laugh, right? The Maelstrom incident, right, is that he's referring to the Maelstrom Air Force Base, right? It was a UFO incident, just like what he said, and it's like there was an analyst instance which happened to. He said that the what was it? He said the incident happened in 1967. It happened in 1967. It says to that date, all missiles had been. What happened? They said it said there was a UFO. It was on 1967 happened, and this is one of the naval base officers, right? The Air Force is the Air Force's nuclear launch control officer who was stationed at the base, right? For the what they call the Oscar flight, received a call from a frightened security guard who reported that a UFO flying directly over the Oscar flight control center at the base. And it says they immediately woke up the first crew commander, which was first, his name was First Lieutenant Fred Mayward. He said then within minutes of the call, the missiles started to shut down one by one, right? And this is Captain Robert Salas. He's a nuclear launch control officer at the Maelstrom Air Force Base. And this was his statement about the UFOs interfering with the nuclear missiles at Maelstrom. Then there was 10 nuclear missiles. And he said he called a flight went off an alert status and it was covered in many outlets at the time, right? So he said here, this is the guy here, Salas. This is Robert Salas, Captain Salas. He said Salas immediately woke up the first crew commander, First Lieutenant Fred Mayward. Then within minutes of the call, the missiles started to shut down one by one. Salas said that they went into the no-go while the UFO were overhead, right? Which means they can't be set off. This means that they were disabled, not launchable. A week earlier, on the morning of March the 16th, 1967, 35 miles away from the Oscar flight, from the Maelstrom Naval Air Force Base, UFOs had visited the Echo flight facility and all of its missiles went down too. A declassified document dated March 67, but after the 17th from Strategic Air Commander contains a telex within the subject heading, it says loss of strategic alert, Echo flight, Maelstrom AFB. It further reads, all 10 missiles in Echo flight at Maelstrom lost their strat alert within 10 seconds of each other. This incident occurred at the 684FL base on the 16th of March, 1967. As of this date, all missiles have returned to strat, right? Which means to normal status. The document further includes a statement, grave concern to this headquarters, emphasizes the need for in-depth analysis to determine cause and corrective action and highlight the urgency of this problem and the guarantee of the full cooperation and support. So this is what they did. They said that they submitted a document in their statement. They said they've got grave concerns. This is what the statement said. This is part of the statement. Grave concerns to this headquarters, all right, to the headquarters. Emphasizes the need for the in-depth analysis to determine cause and corrective action and highlight the urgency of this problem and guarantee full cooperation and support. Now, did you hear what he said? He said that they never reported it to him. Listen again when he answers the question. I'm sorry to drag this back, but listen, he's asking him about this incident. This happened in 1967, right? And the lieutenant and the captain, when they sent their report to the headquarters, they said they've got grave concerns at the headquarters. It said it emphasizes the need for in-depth analysts. There's a need for an in-depth analyst to determine cause and corrective action, and highlights the urgency of this problem. And they guaranteed full cooperation and support, the naval base, right? This is what they put in their report. 1967. Now, this guy is telling me that he didn't, this senator is asked, this congressman is asking the naval intelligence officers, right, about this incident and what they've done about it. Listen to their reply.
Exists
How they lie.
somewhere.
I have heard stories. I have not seen the official data on that.
So you've just seen informal stories, no official assessment that you've done or exists within DoD that you're aware of regarding the Malmstrom incident?
All I can speak to is, what's within my cognizance, the UAP task force, and we have not looked at that incident.
Well, I would say, I mean, it's a pretty high-profile incident. I don't claim to be an expert on this, but
It's a pretty high-profile incident. We read the report, part of the report, that they have grave concerns and that they needed they wanted an immediate analyst to determine the cause and corrective action. And they highlighted the urgency of the problem and they guaranteed their full support. That was the emphasis for that. And he's saying that no one looked at that from 1967 till today, 2022. So we're talking 55 years have gone past and no one has looked into that report to see exactly what happened. These guys knows what's going on, man. See, the senator's asking the right questions, but the intelligence officer, the Naval Intelligence Branch, are not giving the answers because they know, they've investigated this. They know that these are the chariots of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. They know that this thing is for real. Let's listen.
that's out there in the ether. You're the guys investigating it. I mean, who else is doing it?
If something was officially brought to our attention, we would look at it. There are many things that are out.
He said if something was officially brought to our attention. What did the captain say? Captain Robert Salas, who is the nuclear launch control officer at Maelstrom Air Force, had in his statement about the UFOs interfering with the nuclear missiles at Maelstrom. 10 missiles called a flight went off. He said 10 missiles, it called the flight went off an alert status covered in many news outlets, which mirrored the statements in the National Press Club between the meetings in 2010. So this is someone that wrote about it in the public papers. He said the documents that Captain Robert Salas and the lieutenant submitted, included in the statement, they said they had grave concern to these headquarters, what happened. They emphasized the need for in-depth analysts to determine cause and corrective action and highlights the urgency of this problem, and they guaranteed their full cooperation and support. And he said that no one reported this officially. Man, I tell you, boy, these people are lying out their teeth. But let's listen to the rest of this.
In the ether that aren't officially brought to our attention.
So how would it have to be officially brought to your attention? I'm bringing it to your attention.
Sure, so,
This is pretty official.
Sure. So we'll go back and take a look at it, but generally there is some authoritative figure that says there is an incident that occurred. We'd like you to look at this. But in terms of just tracking what may be in the media.
Did not just read it, the authoritative figure, the captain, Robert Salas, the captain of the Nuclear Launch Control Center at Maelstrom Air Force Base. Is he not he's a captain and he's lieutenant, put in their report, sent it to the hierarchy at Washington HQ. These guys are lying out of their teeth, boy. Go on, let's listen.
Media that says that something occurred at this time, at this place, there are probably a lot of leads that we would have to follow up on. I don't think we are resourced to do that right now.
Well, I don't claim to be an authoritative figure, but for what it's worth, I would like you to look into it. And
Sure.
if for no other reason, you could dismiss it and say this is not worth wasting resources on.
Will do.
And have we attempted to communicate with those objects?
No.
So we don't even put out a alert saying, U.S. Identify yourself. You are, within our flight path or something like that. We haven't said anything like that.
We've not put anything out like that. Generally speaking, for example, in the video that we showed earlier, it appears to be something that.
So they've made no attempts to communicate. I know these devils have been trying to communicate with the Chariots, but the Chariots say, I'm not ready to talk to you. They're going to be ready to talk to you devils on the day of judgment, on the day of salvation. There's no way that these devils, when they see these chariots, ain't broadcasting some sort of signal to try to communicate with them to get a response. The angels of the Lord are not ready to deal with you. Not yet, Esau, not yet. But he's lying when he says he's not trying to communicate with them. Oh, what a devil, boy. I just listened on.
It is, unmanned, appears to be something that may or may not be in controlled flight, and so we've not attempted any communication with that.
Okay, so, and I assume we've never discharged any armaments against a UAP, correct?
That's correct.
How about wreckage? Have we come across any?
So they say it's never displaced any armament, like fired any missile. I know these devils have been trying all sorts of shit. There's no way they're just watching these things come and go and they're not trying to contact them. They're not firing some sort of missiles at them, whether they're armed or whatever, or some sort of device to try and track them. You know, they tried everything to track the Lord's chariots, but they're not going to get anywhere near them. The Lord ain't ready to deal with you, Esau. Not yet. Not yet. He's coming. He's coming.
Wreckage of any kind of object that has now been examined by you?
The UAP task force doesn't have any wreckage that isn't explainable, that isn't consistent with being of terrestrial origin.
Do we have any sensors underwater to detect on submerged UAPs? Anything that is in the ocean or in the seas?
So I think that would be more appropriately addressed in closed session, sir.
Okay. Basically, it sounds like we have a good partnership with FAA, but apart from FAA, we don't have partnerships with other agencies or other entities that might be tracking so that we could enlarge our data set to make comparisons.
So we will. So that's the goal of this next effort, will be to expand that relationship with the rest of government and the interagency.
All right. With that, I want to thank you all for taking the time out. I also want to thank my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for participating in this very historical and important hearing. I think it's one of the few times we can demonstrate some degree of bipartisanship around UAPs and UFOs. So I love it. Appreciate it. Thank you. And we will see you all. We will recess this hearing for the moment and return in a closed session at noon.
So there you have it. Let's pull out some scriptures. Deniability. They admit seeing them, but they deny trying to make any kind of contact or doing anything in harm's way of these chariots. Man, that's beautiful, boy. Esau's time is up, man. His time is up. So let's bring out a couple of scriptures. Ezekiel chapter 1 always comes to mind first, all right? The visions of the four figures. Ezekiel 1:1. This is what they saw. This is what they saw. They saw what Ezekiel saw. You see, what Ezekiel saw in the river Chiba, only he saw it. When the heavens opened up for Ezekiel, only he saw what appeared in the heavens. Just like when the chariots came for Elijah, only Elisha saw it. That's why it says, Elisha said, the chariots are chariots of the Lord. Only he saw it. So same thing here. So the chariots are appearing now for everyone to see. They're no longer just appearing for certain people to see. The Lord is revealing his hand. They know what it is they are seeing. They know the Bible. They know that these things have been written about from the beginning of time, from when we were delivered at the Exodus. They know it was a chariot that came and delivered the children of Israel, that gave you the fire by night, the light by night, which is the fire by night, according to the Bible, and the cloud by day. They know. These scholars know. So Ezekiel had a vision. Ezekiel 1:1. Now it come to pass in the 13th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Chiba, that the heavens were opened, and I saw the visions of the powers, which were the chariots of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. In the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's captivity, the word of Yahweh was expressly unto Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzai, in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Chiba, and the hand of Yahweh was there upon him. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire unfolded itself. Only Ezekiel saw this. He was amongst the captivity. He was amongst the other Israelites. No one else saw this but Ezekiel. And a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof as the color of amber, and out of the midst of the fire. And also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. And every one of them had 4 faces, and every one of them had 4 wings. So these would have been smaller chariots coming out of the larger chariots. This is what Ezekiel is witnessing on the river Cheba, going into captivity under the Babylonians. He says here, because that vision, just get this correct here, right? Took place somewhere around sort of like 600 BC. That's when the Neo-Babylonians came for the Israelites. It says, also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. Everyone had 4 faces, everyone had 4 wings, and their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. These were the angels that were in the chariots. And they had their hands, and they had the hands of a man under their wings on their 4 sides, and the 4 had their faces and their wings. So these are smaller chariots coming out of the larger ones, where you can see he was actually seeing the angels in these chariots. That's why it says, and they had the hands of a man under their wings. So these were some sort of smaller capsules that came out of the larger ones on the river Cheba. He's watching, Ezekiel's watching a spectacle right now. And he's probably looking at the rest of the captives on the river Cheba and thinking to himself, can't you see it? You can't see it. He knows it's for him. That vision was only meant for him. It says, their wings were joined one to another. They turned not. When they went everyone straight forward. And I keep telling you, these chariots don't need to turn left or right like a car or a boat or an airplane or a truck. They don't have to turn their bodies to go left or to go right. You know, like how a car has to turn its body to go left or turn its body to go right, you know, or a truck or a boat or a plane. They have to turn. They just go whatever direction they want to go. So this is what Ezekiel was witnessing. And if we jump down to here, he describes it a bit more. He says, now as I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures with 4 faces. And the appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of beryl. And the 4 had one likeness, and the appearance and their work, and their appearance of the chariots and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. So he saw circular chariots. When they went upon their 4 sides, and they turned not when they went. They didn't need to turn left, right, up, down. They just moved in those directions. As for their rings, they were so high that they were dreadful. Right? So this is the shape. They're the shape of a ring. And their rings were what? Were full of eyes. Those eyes were the bright lights coming out of those chariots. Round about them 4. And when the living creatures went, the wheels went by them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Wheresoever the spirit was to go, the angels in the chariots, they went. Thither was their spirit to go. And the wheels were lifted up over against them, for the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. So to Ezekiel, these machines that he saw were like living creatures, because he has never ever seen a machine before flying through the air or driving along the ground. You know, he's never seen a machine. He's never seen anything flying through the air. That's why he said, wheresoever the spirit was to go, they went. Thither was their spirit to go. And the wheels were lifted up over against them, for the spirit of the living creature, which was a chariot, he thought it was a living creature, the chariot itself. It had life in it. It was breathing. For the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. He saw the angels in these chariots as if they were like one and the same thing to him. He says, when those went, these went. And when those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up over against them. For the spirit of the living creature, the angels, was in the wheels. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely. This is what they saw. 2 Kings. I'm going to bring out a few scriptures there. I don't need to go, because I know most of you know this. I just need to see that, because that in that session with those Congress and the naval intelligence officers took place 2 weeks ago. So this was another meeting amongst them roughly 2 weeks ago. So here, sit down here. We start at verse 8. It says, and Elijah took his mantle and wrapped it together and smote the waters, and they were divided hither and thither, so that the two went over on dry ground. So Elijah divided the waters, just like how Moses divided the waters when the Israelites were escaping for the Egyptians. So the both of them walked over dry ground. And it came to pass, when they were gone over, that Elijah said unto Elisha, which was like his apprentice, his second, ask what I shall do for thee before I be taken away from thee. And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. He just wanted to be twice as good as Elijah. Just give me twice of what you had, Elijah. That's what he asked for, a double spirit of what Elijah had, the faith and the strength that Elijah had when he was walking the earth. That's all Elisha wanted. And he said, thou hast asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if thou see me, you hear that? When I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee. But if not, it shall not be so. So if he sees Elijah's deliverance and how he's going to be delivered and taken, because Elijah knew that his time was up. He knew that the Lord was coming for him, but not even Elijah knew in what form or shape this was going to take place. But he just said, look, if you see when I go, when the angels come for me, then you're going to get that double spirit. That double portion of the spirit that you wanted. So it says, and it came to pass as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire. The chariots of fire are what those naval intelligence officers were describing. Those are the UFOs, those are the UAPs, the unidentified flying objects, the unidentified aerial phenomena. That's what Elisha saw come for Elijah. There appeared a chariot of fire, and horses of fire parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. And Elisha saw it, so he witnessed it. And he cried, my father, my Abba, the chariots of Israel. Those are the chariots of Israel, family. What he saw, and people have been witnessing, and been witnessing a lot more frequently, are the chariots of Israel. That's what they are seeing. This is how we're going to be delivered. Those of us that make it. When I say we, the hopeful elect of the house of Israel. He says, my father, the chariots of Israel and the horsemen thereof. And he saw him no more. And he took hold of his own clothes and rent them in 2 pieces. He also took up the mantle of Elijah that fell from him and went back and stood by the bank of Jordan. Can you imagine? So you got Ezekiel that witnessed it, the chariots by the river Cheba. Elisha witnesses the chariots come for Elijah by the river Jordan. All praises to Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Let's get King David's encounter. Everyone's had an encounter. Let's get King David's. Psalms 18. We're just going to go through a few of the prophets and their encounters with the chariots of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. I tell you, boy, we're nearly out of here, family. Truly, when I tell you, we're nearly out of here. Believe me. Psalms 18. Where do I want to start? We just start here, verse 6. Psalms 18, verse 6. Yeah, see that? The Lord prays by giving deliverance. Same deliverance that David got here is how we're going to get deliverance. The Lord Yahweh praised, he's praised for what? For giving deliverance. What does Yahushai's name mean? It means he's the deliverer. He's the deliverer. Yah, he, Hawashai, deliverer. So this is David's encounter, all right? When he was delivered in his distress. In my distress, I called upon Yahweh and cried unto my power. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him, even into his ears. Then the earth shook, O Lord, and trembled. All praises to Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. The foundations also of the hills moved and were shaken because he was wroth. You know what shaking that shook the earth? That's made it tremble. And the foundations, that's the chariot that came for King David. There went up a smoke out of his nostrils, and fire out of his mouth devoured. Coals were kindled by it. Those are the laser beams. Ezra speaks about that in the second coming of our Lord Yahushua, when he's going to come and take down these nations in the valley of Jehoshaphat and these armies around the world. Ezra speaks about that in the book of Ezra, chapter 13, and we'll touch a little bit of that. He says he bowed the heavens also and came down, and darkness was under his feet. And he rode what? Upon a cherub, a chariot, UFO, a UAP, and did fly. Yea, he did fly upon the wings of the wind. He made darkness his secret place. His pavilion round about him were dark waters and thick clouds of skies. At the brightness that was before him, his thick clouds passed, hailstones and coals of fire. That's what he's firing out of those chariots. The Lord Yahweh also thundered in the heavens, and the highest gave his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. Yea, he sent out his arrows, laser beams, and did what? And scattered them. Who is he scattering? The enemy. David is talking about here. Just so you understand, get a little backstory on what we're talking about here. A psalm of David, the servant of Yahweh, Hashem Yahushai, who spake unto Yahweh the words of this song in the day. David made a song about his deliverance, right? In the day, because remember, all of these psalms are songs, you know. Remember that. And like poems, right? In the day that Yahweh, the Most High, delivered King David from the hand of all his enemies, right? All of his enemies that came against him, and from the hand of Saul, because Saul had, you know, like mercenary groups from other nations working with him to capture David. And he said, I will love thee, O Yahweh, Hashem, Yahushai, my strength. The Lord Yahweh is my rock and my fortress, not your AK-47 or your RA-15s, right? All these guns that you see, these that Israelite camp Sakari carrying. I saw a video today of Sakari teaching in Philly alongside those guys carrying AR-15s, 9mm handguns, 38 handguns, and preaching the word. Sakari's lost his mind. Sakari has lost his mind. I watched a video of Sakari today, preaching in Philadelphia with the rest of his Sakari camp, the Sakari camp from Philadelphia. And he's preaching alongside them while they were standing, holding posts with AR-15s, 9mm handguns, 38 handguns, rifles, shotguns. These guys have lost their minds, Sakari. They've totally lost their minds. They're not reading the scriptures. They're doing their own thing. Just so you understand. When we talk about these other camps, we talk about them in truth and sincerity. Sakari has lost his mind. His leadership is not worth the paper it's written on. King David is showing you here, Israel. Israel. The Lord Yahweh is my rock. Not the AR-15, the 9mm, the 38 handgun, the pump action shotgun, the rifle. That's not your rock. But that's what Sakari had while he was teaching the word in Philadelphia this week. Alazar, the head of Sakari, has lost his mind. Let's go back anyway. It just came to me because I saw the video earlier today. The Lord Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Father and the Son, is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. I saw another video today. Elder Mahataza from South Carolina, GMS South Carolina, he was showing a video of this Israelite with his daughter handling handguns blindfolded, talking about how the gun is going to protect them and deliver me. Don't rely on the Lord Yahweh Shai. Don't rely on the government. Don't rely on this. Just rely on your handgun. The Lord is going to distress them. He's going to distress them. Watch and see. He had a whole table full of guns, this boy, with his 9-year-old or 10-year-old daughter. And she was loading the pistol and taking it apart, blindfolded, and showing how good she was at handling the gun and taking it apart and putting together blindfolded. And for some reason, him and his daughter thought it was a great thing to put it on, I think it was TikTok, for the whole world to see, to say, yeah, those Israelites the Lord is going to destroy in such a way. Him, his daughter, watch and see. They want to rely on their handguns. I didn't mean to go off there, boy, but those two things just came to mind because I saw those two videos earlier today. The Lord family, not your AR-15 or your pump action shotgun or your 9mm, right? Or your 38mm or your government official, wherever you want to turn to, the Lord is your rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my power, my strength, in whom I will trust, my buckler and the horn of my salvation and my high tower. I will call upon Yahweh, who is worthy to be what? To be praised, not your handguns and how quick you can put them together. So shall I be saved from my enemies. He was telling his daughter, don't rely on the Lord, right? Which obviously he called Jesus Christ. Even don't rely on your government official, your local congressman. Don't rely on your friends or where. This is what you got to rely on your handgun. That's what he was telling his 9-year-old daughter. You got to rely on your handgun. That ain't going to save you from your enemies. Only Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shah. So this is who David made this psalms about, this song about his deliverance from Saul and the mercenaries that Saul had working for him. The Lord sent David a chariot. And just like David said, the Lord Yahweh also thundered in the heavens, and the highest gave his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. Yea, he sent out arrows, laser beams, and scattered them, and he shot out lightnings and discomfited them. Then the channels of waters were seen, and the foundations of the world were discovered at thy rebuke, O Yahweh, at the blast of the breath of thy nostrils, coming out of the chariot. He sent from above, from the chariot, the UFO UAP. He took me. He drew me out of many waters. So David was taken up into the chariot to be delivered out of that. There you go. He delivered me from my strong enemy and from them that which hated me, for they were too strong for me. They prevented me in the day of my calamity, but Yahweh was my stay. Not David's weapons. David called on Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, and he sent his angel to deliver him from Saul and Saul's mercenaries. All praises. That's what the discussion was today. That's what they were talking about. This is what those government officials were talking about. Those chariots. Second Ezra's. And Ezra speaks about the same thing. Same thing what happened to David. Those chariots are coming back to deliver the children of Israel. Remember the Lord said, before we even go there, the Lord says in Revelations 19, the Lord is coming here, right? It says here, the coming of Yahweh Shai. This is his second coming. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, which represents power. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. That's Yahushua coming in, the mother of all chariots. And in righteousness he does judge and make war. In righteousness he's coming to do this. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. Represents his power, his leadership, his rulership. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, symbolic for the amount of bloodshed that's going to be shed when the Lord comes with the angels. And his name is called the Word of Yahweh. He's coming in the name and the word of his Father. And the armies, listen carefully, which were in heaven, the rest of the angels coming with the Lord, followed him upon white horses. The rest of the angels coming in their chariots, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goes what? A sharp sword, laser beams, that he should smite the nations. That's the war of Armageddon. The Lord, the angels and their chariots. And he shall rule them with a what? With a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness of the wrath of the Almighty power. All praises to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. All praises to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. He's coming. Not your AK. Your AK ain't doing nothing for you. The Lord is coming. He is coming. It says here, is it James? James 5, chapter 5, right? It says here, James 5 and 4. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud. We are those laborers. He's kept back our wages by fraud. Cries. We are crying to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua to come and take this man down. And the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. So let's find out who the Lord of Sabaoth is, right? That's what we are doing. We sigh and cry every day for the fraud and corruption and the wickedness, the immorality that's perpetrated in this world in the name of Esau and his rulership. The Lord of Sabaoth. That's Yahushai. See that? The Lord of the armies of Israel. He's not the armies of the world or the armies of anyone that wants to believe in the Lord Yahushai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. He is the Lord of the armies of Israel. And in these last days, the Israel that he's going to be building the armies up, in these last days, the Lord of the armies of this Israel is the elect, the remnant, the hopeful elect. As those who are under the leadership, you hear that? And the protection of Yahweh, praise it to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, maintain his cause in war. So the Lord of Yahweh, the Lord of Sabaoth is Yahushai. He's the Lord of the armies of Israel. We just read that in Revelations 19, right? When he says here, and the armies which were in heaven followed him. Followed who? Upon the white horse. Who's on the white horse? Yahushai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Clothed in fine linen, white and clean, purity. That's the Lord of Sabaoth, the Lord of the armies of Israel. As those who are under the leadership and protection of Yahweh maintain his cause in war. So we go back to 2nd Ezra. It says, 2nd Ezra chapter 13, verse 1. And it came to pass after 7 days I dreamed a dream by night. And lo, there arose a wind from the sea, that it moved all the waves thereof. And beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heavens. Who is that? Yahushai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. And when he turned his countenance to look, all the things trembled that were seen under him. They're going to, I tell you, boy, they're going to, all of them, the wicked of Israel, the wicked 2/3 of Israel, they're going to tremble. They're going to literally shit and piss in their pants. Excuse my French. They're going to literally do that. Many people, you know, when these chariots appear. And whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned. that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it feeleth the fire. The voice that's coming out of his mouth is the same sword here that's going to burn them. When he says, and out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that's the laser beam, that with it it should smite the nations. Smite means to kill. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and the wrath of the almighty power, Yahweh. He's doing all of this in the name of his Father. There's going to be so much bloodshed shed when the war of Armageddon kicks off and when these chariots appear. But I beheld, and lo, he graved himself a great mountain. That's the chariot, the UFO, the UAP, and flew up upon it. He ain't flying on no actual mountain. What Ezra saw in his vision, remember, Ezra said he couldn't see where it started, where it finished. He says to him, it looked like he was flying on a mountain. It was a chariot of a size that is unimaginable. He says, but I would have seen, there you go, the region or place whereat the hill was graven, and I could not. He couldn't see where the chariot started or where it finished. So to him, it looked like a great mountain. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were so afraid, yet durst fight. Because the Most High is going to put the Spirit on them. Yahweh is going to put the Spirit on the nations to fight against his Son. Simple as that, to fight against Yahweh. As terrified as they are, they're going to fight. The Lord's going to give them a real good fight. He's going to give them the rope-a-dope. Going to make them feel that they're winning at one point. Then the rope-a-dope. Praise the Yahweh. He's going to give them the rope-a-dope. It says, and lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, the Edomites, NATO, all of the members of NATO, and all of the other nations that are going to join NATO in this fight against the Lord, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held a sword, nor any instrument of war. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth, as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. Those are the laser beams coming out of the chariots. And they were all mixed together. The blast of fire, the flaming breath, the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which were prepared to fight, and burned them every one up, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and the smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. They're going to be disintegrated. The laser beams are going to disintegrate their weapons and the people. Afterwards, I saw a man come down from the from the mountain, which was the chariot, and called unto him another peaceable multitude. That's it. That's the elect, the 2/3 of Israel. I mean, it's all there. It's all there for you to see and understand. Say no more. It's all there. One more scripture before we shut this down. One more scripture, because it comes to mind. Is it Zechariah? Hold on, Zechariah 5, I think. Hold on. Stop doing that. Zechariah 5, I want. Yeah. Yeah, Zechariah 5:1, the flying roll. The flying roll is the chariot. The flying scroll, sorry, I'm saying roll. The flying scroll is the chariot. And we're going to finish here. It says, then I turned and lifted up mine eyes. This is Zechariah the prophet. And looked, and behold, a flying roll, the chariot of the Lord's angels in their chariots. And he says unto me, what seest thou? Just like what those naval officers were reporting. What did they see? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 10 cubits. Right? This is what he saw, what looked like a scroll flying through the air. It was the shape of a scroll. Then said he unto me, this is what? This is the curse. This is the curse for Esau and the other nations, the chariots of the Lord and the angels, that goes forth over the face of the whole earth. It's going to cover the whole planet Earth, these chariots. For everyone that stealeth shall be cut off. Who's the greatest thief? The Edomites. as on this side according to it, and everyone that sweareth shall be cut off as on that side according to it. I will bring it forth, the chariots and the angels, says Yahweh of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief. Where is the house of the thief? The greatest thief in this world is the United States of America, Esau's HQ, the Edomites' headquarters. Those chariots are going to enter into the house of the thief, which is America, and into the house of him that sweareth falsely by my name, Jesus Christ, right? Jesus loves everybody. These Edomites swear falsely by the name of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, by calling on this white devil and telling him that he's your Lord and your Savior, and anyone can receive salvation. He's coming for you, Esau. He's coming for you. And it shall what? And it shall remain in the midst of his house. Okay, it's going to destroy the whole land of North America is going to be destroyed. And shall consume it. He's going to consume it first with nuclear weapons, nuclear missiles, and then the chariots of the Lord and the angels are going to completely destroy America. Then they're going to consume it with the timber thereof and the stones thereof. Everything is going to be consumed in America. So this is what they saw. They saw the chariots of the Lord. This is what they were reporting on. This is what they saw. This is what they were reporting on. It's as simple as that. When he says we're going to discuss this,
It's a privilege to be here with you today to address your questions regarding unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UAP. What are UAP? Put simply, UAP are airborne objects that, when encountered, cannot be immediately identified. However, it is the department's contention that by combining appropriately structured collected data with rigorous scientific analysis, any object that we encounter can likely be isolated, characterized, identified, and if necessary, mitigated. With regard to the importance of transparency, the department is fully committed to the principle of openness and accountability to the American people.
well, you're gonna have to be open and accountable to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, because he's gonna make you devils accountable and you wicked Israelites. So on that note, I pray you were edified by today's edification. I say to you, if you came into this session at the middle, go back to the beginning of this video, the edification, and listen to what they said and the extracts I added to it before we went into the scriptures. All right? So as always, we give all the praises and the glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who are leading this word in truth and in spirit and sincerity. And salutations to my fellow Hebrew Israelite brothers out there that have been teaching the word on the highways and the hedges. And to the hopeful elect brothers and sisters of Israel, those of you that have woken up to this truth of who we are and who the nations are, shalom to the hopeful elect. As I always say, keep safe, keep praying, and hold on to this truth, because this is all we got. In the name of our Savior, Yahweh, the Father's name, which means he is, and Yahweh Shai, the Son's name. He's the deliverer. Simple as. Shalom, 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 family. All praises.